So manure is a cost-effective way to improve your soil health. It improves the fertility and water holding capacity of your soil. Manure is a well-known soil amendment that contains many useful components, one of the main ones being nutrients for plants. It contains nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The organic matter in manure improves soil structure, which can increase the soil's water holding capacity. And the organic matter content allows for the slow release of nutrients that helps promote good soil health. But remember that manure has the potential to introduce human pathogens to crops. And a quick little fun fact, manure has even been used as a construction material. So manure does have some risks. Manure can carry and spread human pathogens. Animals tend to be reservoirs for different types of pathogens, and they all have the potential to shed the pathogens in their feces. Birds like chickens often shed salmonella and campylobacter, while ruminants like cows and sheep often shed E. coli. There are many factors that contribute to whether an animal will shed human pathogens in their feces. If the manure you're using is not treated properly before use, or if raw manure is applied improperly, it can present itself as a food safety risk. So here are some ways to reduce risk. Manure can be used while growing produce as long as you take the appropriate steps to reduce the risk. So rather than using raw manure, consider using treated composted manure. Extend the interval between application and harvest as much as possible. If you do use raw untreated manure, make sure to apply it in a way that will not contact the edible parts of the crop. Make sure that the application of manure doesn't put any nearby crops at risk. So think of how the wind could impact where you're using the manure, or if there's any kind of irrigation runoff in the area you're using it, or even storing it. Store manure properly to reduce runoff risks, as mentioned. You could consider covering manure piles to prevent wind drift. Establish good handling practices to reduce cross-contamination from tools and equipment, and keep good records to monitor manure treatment and application. What is treated compost? The FDA has two examples of treated compost: an aerated static, so not turned, pile reaching 131 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 consecutive days, a turned compost pile reaching 131 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 days, not necessarily consecutive, which must be turned at least 5 times to ensure processing to completion. So anyone who works with manure should be aware of the risks that handling and applying manure may present. Workers should be provided the proper training and equipment for working with manure, and this is even true for the grower as well. Everyone and anyone who comes into contact with manure and will be using it should know of the risks that come with it. So when handling manure, it is best to have designated tools and equipment for its handling. If these tools will be used in other areas, the standard operating procedure, or SOP, should be developed on how to clean them before any other use. Always try to reduce the likelihood of cross-contamination. Consider directing foot traffic away from any location where manure is stored and handled to reduce the chances of tracking contamination to area where produce is grown or handled. When you store your manure, it would be good to choose a storage location that is not likely to experience runoff and it's not close to water or easily accessible by animals. Aim to minimize leaching and wind drift to reduce the contamination of any nearby crops. Questions?